When a biology teacher is drafted by a futuristic army to fight alongside others in a bid to stop an alien invasion, how well does he fight? Will he also be able to save his daughter, who is now a senior military officer, in the future before it's too late? Hello, and welcome to our channel. Today we will recap and review a sci-fi movie called The Tomorrow War. Let's check it out.
The movie opens with a man, Dan, trying to get home on Christmas Eve 2022. He's on the phone trying to convince whoever it is to give him a chance to work for them. From his conversation, it is clear that he has military experience as well as that of a teacher. Unfortunately, his request is turned down and he is not offered the job. Dan is upset as he throws his academic papers away and takes out his frustration on the trash can and mailbox. As he gets back to the living room, he goes to sit with his daughter Muri and wife Emma. He tries to act normal as they watch a Brazilian football match on TV.
One who can adapt to life outside the military and then still be relevant to the other spheres of life outside the battlefield, that is what Dan is great for. However, he does seem to have an explosive side to his personality, and this might be connected to the frustration that one feels when he's denied an opportunity to prove himself.
Suddenly, the stadium on the television becomes unusually bright with electrical charges across the field. A group of military-attired men and women appear out of the electrically charged air. The leader of the group, Lieutenant Hart, tells the footballers and spectators that they are from the year 2051. She also informs them that the Earth was invaded by a terrifying group of aliens known as the White Spikes that same year. She ends by requesting help from the people who are alive in the present. 12 months after this unexpected and out-of-this-world appearance in the stadium, the world is counting its losses, with millions of people being sent to fight the White Spikes in the future without any success. Even though the mortality rate is as high as 80%, governments around the world have continued to send these innocent people, including untrained or half-trained civilians, to confront the merciless aliens. One day, as Dan teaches biology in his class, made up of uninterested and scared students, he gets an SMS on his phone informing him about his draft into the squad to go and fight the White Spikes. As he goes to a facility where the drafted people are tested and deployed, the military officers tell him that he is a good fit for the military. According to them, his life would end in 2030, so he might as well go fight in 2051 since he's not expected to be alive by then anyway.
Wow. Well, that was a great way to recruit men and women to fight. His tests and forceful recruitment are quickly concluded, and then a tracking device is attached to his arm.
As Dan informs his loving wife about his draft into the army, the poor soul is terrified, and she asks that he hides from the government, who do not seem to have any more clues as to how to deal with this problem from the future. She convinces him to visit his father, James, who might be able to take off the tracker from his hand. When Dan visits his highly intelligent father, there's a coldness between them. It turns out that Dan is angry at his father for abandoning him and his mother after returning from the Vietnam War. In his defense, James tries to explain to his son that he was suffering from great trauma and wouldn't have been able to play the role of a father or a husband. This is why he left the family. On hearing this, Dan becomes really angry at his father. He doesn't believe the older man and decides that he doesn't want his help and would go on the mission to the future, as crazy as that sounds. Dan returns home to his wife and daughter and breaks the not-so-great news that he will be going on this alien war tour. After some emotional goodbyes, Dan leaves for the onboarding facility. As he arrives, to his surprise, he discovers that most of the draftees are novices who have never handled a gun, let alone gone into battle. Hart makes things even worse when she tells them that no training would be provided and they would only need to survive. After some wishy-washy gun training, the team is prepared for battle.
The entire preparation process is really laughable. The governments of these nations are gladly sending innocent citizens, including civilians, to be a part of a war that literally no one understands. It has been a year into this senseless battle, so it makes you almost wonder, why are there no training centers for potential new soldiers? The secrecy behind the whole mission, from the unknown enemies to the ill-trained soldiers, it's a surefire recipe for disaster.
Among his teammates are Charlie, a researcher at a geothermal company, as well as an experienced fighter, Dorian, who is on his third tour against the White Spikes.
Hats off to you, Dorian. Cheers, mate. Thanks for all you do for humanity.
As the draftees try to rest a while, the alarm blares, signifying that it's time to make the jump into the future. Yeah, the soldiers are basically flung through time to 2051 whenever there's a need for war. The room where the draftees stand is suddenly lit up as the time travel machine is powered on. They are lifted into the light and dematerialized before being carried into 2051. As Dan materializes in the future, he finds that something is not okay with their landing. It turns out that the time machine is still in its experimental phase and malfunctioned during this particular jump. This proves to be fatal for some of the draftees, as a number of them fall to their demise in 2051. Fortunately for Dan, he lands inside a pool. As he steps out of the pool, only a few people have survived this insane jump from 2022. The city is also completely destroyed and on fire. He establishes a connection with the military unit in 2051, and the colonel there, Murray, tells him his mission. This includes rescuing some researchers from their lab where they've been trapped. They are also to get as far away as possible from the city because there's an airstrike on the way to blow it up since it's been overrun by white spikes. As they get back to the lab, they find out it's already too late, as the researchers have already been mortally attacked by the aliens. Colonel Murray tells Dan, who is naturally the team lead, to get some experimental samples from the lab and leave as soon as possible. After getting the samples, they begin to run out of the laboratory when a white spike is seen. It attacks them as others join in. Dan battles one of them, even though his bullets are not exactly effective. After a close shave with one of the aliens, Dorian comes to his rescue and destroys the creature. He informs Dan that the creatures can only be eliminated when they are either shot in the necks or their bellies. As they do their best to get out of the town, some of them are attacked with darts from the aliens, injuring them. The military bombers move in and set the city ablaze with explosives. Dan passes out as a result. As he wakes up in a makeshift facility, he discovers that only he, Dorian, and Charlie survive the battle. Dorian tells them that the battle is pointless and nothing will change, no matter how much they fight. When Dan asks why he keeps returning to the battle, he tells him that he has a terminal disease that will end his life in 6 months. He probably wants to do something with his remaining days instead of waiting for the unwelcome hands of death to catch up with him. Dan steps out and meets the colonel, who incidentally shares the same name as him. When he jokingly probes to know if they share some form of relationship, the colonel replies that they do. It turns out that the colonel is none other than his beloved daughter, Murray. Dan is excited and proud of his little girl, who is now an accomplished military colonel. He tries to hug her, but she steps back, surprising him.
It is obvious that she doesn't want to build any emotional ties with him. The world in her time is very uncertain, and she has seen enough sorrow from the demise of loved ones, colleagues, and friends. It's also possible that there's something about their past that Dan has yet to experience.
Murray, however, tells her father that she was brought to the future for an important purpose. She takes him to a lab where she shows him a female white spike, a very powerful creature responsible for birthing the terrible aliens in her nest. Their next mission is to capture it, as they need to try out a toxin on it. Murray, Dan, and some other soldiers get ready to capture the creature. Inside the nest, the female alien battles and eliminates the soldiers. However, Murray is able to shoot it in the neck with a sedative. As the creature discovers that it's been captured, it calls out to the male white spikes, and they rush to the nest. Dan rushes into the nest as well and goes to the rescue of his daughter. As they manage to escape the creatures, an angry Murray rebukes her dad for disobeying her orders and coming into the nest.
Come on, Murray, where's your respect for the elderly gone to? This is your dad, for crying out loud.
Dan defends himself by saying he's not going to stand by and watch his daughter get mauled. Murray is forced to tell him what happens after he returns from this war with the aliens. She tells him that things get really bad in the family, and he leaves them just like his father did to him. On her 16th birthday, he gets into a car accident and eventually passes away at the hospital. Dan is distraught by this revelation, as it turns out that he is really no different from his own father, who he despises. Later on, Dan goes to the facility which houses the time travel machine as well as Murray's lab. After trying to pry some information from her, she eventually tells him that he was brought to the past so he could take the toxin back. It would be a better strategy to take out the white spikes before they ever show up, right? The toxin is successfully synthesized, but at the same time, the female alien wakes up and cries out for help. Jeez, how loud exactly is this evil mama's cry? As the male aliens come galloping towards the facility, Dan and Murray do their best to fight off the creatures and make it out safely. Unfortunately, Murray is shot with a deadly spike from the aliens. She is therefore unable to move, and Dan has to carry her along. The bridge they're on breaks, and Murray is pulled away by the white spikes. Dan dives right after her, but the time jump machine comes on and he's carried away to 2022. As he lands, he discovers that jumping to the future is no longer possible as the machine is now damaged. Although he has the toxins to eliminate the dreaded aliens, he has no idea where to find them. Emma believes that the aliens might already be around and may just be hiding. Dan visits Charlie, who examines a spike on Dorian's neck and finds out from the ash residue on it that it might have come from Asia during a volcanic eruption centuries ago, but the aliens might have been frozen in Russia. They turn to James, who flies them to the suspected area. They blow up the icy area and discover a crashed ship with white spikes in sacks. They eliminate them as quickly as they can, but some have awoken from their deep slumber and are trying to escape. To prevent them from attacking the city, Dorian and Hart decide to sacrifice themselves by blowing up the ship. Dan and James are left alive, but still need to battle the female white spike that escaped the blast. Fortunately, after a lot of shooting and fighting, they inject it with the toxin, and it is destroyed. The movie ends with the media announcing an inexplicable blast in the Russian Alps, even as Dan returns to his loving family.
With a combination of fast-paced, action-packed, and cliffhanging scenes, this movie was an enjoyable watch. It tells the story of a father and the sacrifices that he must make, as well as the power of the human race to save the planet from hurtful invaders, irrespective of the cost. For fear of nightmares, you might not want to watch this movie at night, but it is a brilliant movie and the ending is just perfect. If you love a great story with a happy ending, then you should definitely consider watching this movie. Please subscribe to our channel to be notified when we upload. Also, don't forget to suggest movies that you want us to recap in the comments down below.